আপনারা দেখছেন টকিং পয়েন্ট, সৌজন্যে স্যাপ সলিসিটরস, যে কোনো আইনি পরামর্শের জন্য।
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking to our distinguished guest today, Professor Ejaz Ahmed, about his doctoral research. Yes, sir.
So just to give you a brief idea about what I did for my research, my PhD thesis. So I was working on this technique called iron cluster beams. Essentially, you heat up a material that you want to deposit. My ultimate objective is to make nanometer films, continuous films, and that's very difficult to produce at that time. So you put the charge, whatever you want to put, in a very small vessel with completely enclosed with a small aperture at the top. You heat that up to, let's say, 3,000 degrees centigrade, and you create an intense vapor pressure inside. And outside you've got vacuum. And then you, the vapor comes out. It's called a nozzle expansion. So it comes out, and it's an adiabatic expansion, which in the vapor stream you've got the atoms, and the atoms form clusters. These clusters are then converted into charged particles by throwing some electrons at it. You accelerate them, and then you deposit on a wafer like this. So I was looking at the, I developed the machine. It took me a couple of years, and then I was looking at the growth kinetics of the film using various techniques, Rutherford backscattering, energy loss spectroscopy, and Auger electrons, and et cetera, et cetera. So looking at the growth kinetics, the physics of the film formation.
Right. Back home, when people do research, you see, they get a degree and they're happy with it, and it's available on university library shelves, and we show it off to our friends, and then everything is forgotten, you see. But I'm sure that at Rutherford it's not the same. It's applied.
A lot of research does not lead to necessarily a firm conclusion or a positive or an application, but
it's a step.
It is a step forward that people can build on. So that's what happens, and that's exactly what happened to my cluster beam system.
Right.
That was a lot of people worked on this system which I built.
You have been involved over 40 research projects, see, and also I think you're director of 3 research companies.
Correct.
We'll come to that later, but this Rosetta mission, one of the greatest experience of 21st century, and we are glad that we have got somebody who is involved with that.
Thank you very much. Our planet, Earth, was created 4.5 billion years ago, 4.54 to be precise. And this was created out of solar nebula, which is cloud of gigantic disk of cloud, and in the cloud you have this gases and particles, and they came together to form what's called the planetoids or asteroids, and they coalesced, and they joined up with other such large masses, and that's how the Earth was formed. And at that point, the Earth was very, very hot. So you can imagine that it was something like this. This is an artist's conception. Several thousand degree centigrade was the temperature of the planet when it was formed. So totally unsustainable. Life could not be sustained under those sort of conditions.
Then the distance of the sun and the Earth, was it the same, or
it is pretty much 93 million miles.
Yeah,
93 million miles.
It has remained constant.
Yes, yes. So this was formed, and to sustain life on Earth, there are some essentials. You need plenty of water.
Right.
When this was cooling down, it is still cooling. Right at the center of the Earth, it is still molten, and the temperature at the center of the Earth is 5,000 degrees centigrade. Top surface is still cold. Okay. So when it was cooling, the heavy metals like iron got inside the Earth, the center of the Earth. And the Earth is going around the sun, but it is also spinning on its own axis at 1,000 miles an hour.
Yes, causing Earth and night and day.
Correct. So this rotating iron inside the Earth is creating a magnetic field. And without that magnetic field, life would not exist. So this magnetic field around the Earth deflects charged particles that's coming from cosmic radiations from outer space. Otherwise, life would not exist. Without water, life would not exist. Without the ozone layer, life would not exist.
Right.
And without the these macromolecules like amino acids, you would not have life. So the question is, how did water come on Earth to create the seas and the oceans? So astrophysicists believe that it's a great possibility that comets in the Jupiter belt or the Neptune belt is responsible for water on Earth. And to test that, the Rosetta mission was sent. It is two reasons. To look. So
where was it sent?
It was sent to a comet, which is outside Jupiter, and this is about 510 million kilometers from where we are sitting.
And it took about 10 years to reach there?
It took 10 years to get there, at a great expense of 1.2 billion euros. So,
but they could transmit information from there.
Yes. So there's the Rosetta mission. So terrestrial water has characteristic isotopes. So an atom has electrons, and in the center of the electron you've got protons, equal number of protons, and neutrons. If you have an excess of neutron, that becomes an isotope. So Earth's water has oxygen 16 and 18. If we find oxygen 16 and 18 in comet water, that's a confirmation that water on Earth actually came from comets crashing on it. So that was one thing. The other thing is, comets are also repositories of primordial material from which our solar system was created. So by studying comets, you get some understanding of what was happening when the solar system was actually being created. So these are the two compelling reasons why this mission was actually sent. Now, this was sent in 2004, and before that, I was working on something called field emission. Okay, I'll come to that in a bit. So the Rosetta, let me put this one up first, maybe. So this is the Rosetta.
The satellite, would you call it?
Yes, it's a satellite. And this has got two parts to it. One is the Rosetta, the other is the lander, which is called Philae. So the Philae detached from the Rosetta and landed on the comet.
Right.
And this Philae has 10 science instruments on it. The UK contribution is the science is a mass spectrometer to analyze the comet environment, the ice, etc. And that was built at the Rutherford Laboratory, where I was there, and the Open University. So my contribution was to this particular
mission,
this particular lander Philae. I was working on a subject called field emission. And field emission is about extracting electrons from an ultra-sharp silicon or a metal tip. So the way it works, on the Ptolemy, the British contribution, you pick up a piece of the comet ice, you heat it up in a platinum cylinder, you vaporize the ice, you have to fire electrons to convert the vapor atoms into charged particles, and then you lead them onto detectors that will tell you whether those isotopes are present or not. Now, it can be very easily done with a heated tungsten filament. So you heat up a filament to temperature like 2700 degrees, and it boils off. There are free electrons on the surface that boil off. So you can, that's the source of electron which you can accelerate and you ionize your gas. But I was working on field emission. This is a silicon tip. You apply a voltage, a much smaller voltage required or power required than a filament.
Right.
And that was the interest, because launching anything in space can be very expensive. And the European Space Agency invited me to to consider putting this on the mission. It was quite a challenge because field emitters are not known to work very well. So it was, even after launch, it was a 50-50 whether this is going to work or not. And this is right on the critical path of the Ptolemy. So if field emitters don't work, there will be no results. So it was quite a challenge, and there were rigorous experiments which I had to do with my research team, and finally it was launched in 2004. So as you know,
during this 2004 and 2014, were you just sitting there with your fingers crossed, what will happen? Or you
yes, consequently I've got these bent fingers. You know, for 10 years I had to keep them crossed. Yes. So the mission was launched from French Guiana on the Ariane 5 rocket launcher. It spun around the Earth, picking up speed by gravity assist, and then looped around Mars, and then headed towards Jupiter. And the comet itself is hurtling at a great speed. So it's almost like, as one said very appropriately, it is like putting a fly, the Rosetta mission, on a fired bullet. So it was, it's not just, you know, the gamut of technology involved to do the science experiments, but the just sheer mathematical the calculations and the precision required to do something like that. You know, this is the comet is only 16 miles across. Yeah. So to put something on a comet which is 510 million miles away, say, is a great challenge. So it happened, and as you know, the comet, the Philae landed on the comet in 2014 on 12th November. Did some experiments, but unfortunately the battery ran off, and they could not energize the solar panels on it because it did not land exactly where it was meant to, because when it first landed it bounced off and it came back again, etc. So there were some problems. But Ptolemy produced some interesting results, and I think myself and my team were pleased that, you know, that we had a contribution to this.
It has contributed to the science.
It has indeed contributed, and we have got plenty of results coming from there. But 2004 was also an interesting year for me because I presented my results at MIT, and I was a regular attendee of the International Vacuum Nanoelectronics Conference, which is dedicated to field emission. And that year, the committee decided to nominate me as the chair for the following year's conference, which I held in Oxford in St. Catherine's College. So I had about 250 participants from all over the world, and including the Nobel laureate, Harry Kroto. So,
well, you have also had the opportunity of working with the well-known Nobel laureate Abdus Salam, and also with Stephen Hawking.
I met Stephen Hawking, and I was quite, I became, for a different reason, quite close to Professor Abdus Salam when he was the head of the International Center for Theoretical Physics. He extended a personal invitation, and I was there for a week, and I had a second visit, and I was also visiting his house on Campion Road in London a few times to discuss not exactly science, but he was also the president of an organization called TWAS, Third World Academy of Science, and he wanted to introduce 20 centers of excellence around the globe to address regional problems. And in that context, he invited me to thrash out to have a brainstorm of what we could be doing in Bangladesh. And he had permission from the Prime Minister then, and he was given a fair plot of land in Savar, just outside Dhaka.
Did it work out?
Unfortunately, it didn't, and I am solely responsible for that, because the idea was to investigate the possibility of manufacturing solar panels in Bangladesh. I'm talking about 1981 here. Sorry, 1991. Yeah.
Very interesting, Dr. Ejaz, and We have to take another commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk about solar energy and how to balance this energy budget. Thank you, viewers, for being with us, and I hope that you're enjoying the show as much as we are. And we'll be back after this commercial break. Thank you.
আপনারা দেখছেন টকিং পয়েন্ট, সৌজন্যে স্যাপ সলিসিটরস, যে কোনো আইনি পরামর্শের জন্য।